Hey everyone, it's Matt from Train Sim Society and welcome back to the channel, or of course, welcome if you're new. So yesterday I reacted to the brand new Dev Diary episode without even realizing that Dovetail has actually posted a brand new article on the West Coast Main Line, London to Milton Keynes. I don't know how I overlooked it, but I did, so I guess there's going to be two videos today instead of one. So in this article, the team is diving into the West Coast Main Line's timetable, outline all the trains you'll get and opportunities for layering them from other Train Sim World add-ons. They also write that they're going to be taking a look at a brand new mode of gameplay in conductor mode, so I'm hoping that we learn even more about that with this brand new article. It's titled Euston, We Have a Pendolino. Before we jump into the West Coast Main Line action, take a look at the first of our 3 development diaries, where we hear from the team about how they bring features, trains, and routes into Train Sim World. I did already cover that, and I want to say that I really like all this behind the scenes stuff. I really hope that it's something that they continue to do regularly, of course, with each new Train Sim World, which I honestly feel like they will, but even for smaller DLCs. In between each new release of a new Train Sim World game, I would like to see more behind the scenes stuff personally. I just really like knowing what goes into making it and recording and crafting these add-ons. So to get into the nitty-gritty for the brand new West Coast Main Line, this is London Euston to Milton Keynes. So on this graphic, which we have all seen many times over at this point, it consists of busy mainline commuter action on 4 tracks. I'm pretty sure they mentioned at one point that the entire length, or at least most of the length of the leg that's included with this add-on, is going to be 4 tracks. So there's a lot of traffic that's going to be moving from north to south on this route. It's going to be a little bit different from East Coast Main Line, I assume, which for a lot of it is only 2 tracks. So we're going to be getting a much different experience with this route. And of course, if you upgrade to the deluxe edition, you're going to get the Class 390 Pendolino. This does not come with the route standard. That is going to layer onto it. It's 50 miles or 80 kilometers, consists of 28 train stations, and with the route, we're going to have the BR Class 350/1, the Southern BR Class 377/2, DB Cargo, BR Class 66, and FKA wagons, and of course, London Underground 1972 MK2 stock. Train Sim World has gone from east to west, following on from the inclusion of a stretch of the East Coast Main Line in Train Sim World 4. This time we've moved over to the equally impressive, historic, and intensive West Coast Main Line between London Euston and Milton Keynes. This arterial route connecting some of Britain's major cities to London has seen plenty of action from its initial opening through to today's services, with numerous amendments and redevelopments of stations along the way, as well as the ever-changing rolling stock that use it. Its existence is formed from a number of different railway lines that were built to then merge during the mid-19th century. 100 years later, between the 1950s and 1970s, the route was modernized and electrified to accommodate more advanced rolling stock, including some of the first tilting trains to operate in the UK. This technology eventually saw the introduction of the Pendolino trains in 2002. So those trains debuted shortly after the Acellas did in the United States, and it's funny because along with the Pendolino, the Amtrak Acela Express is also a tilting train as well. At its southern end, London Euston adds yet another London terminus to Train Sim World. This important station has itself seen major changes throughout its history, and like other stations in the capital, sees the mainline railway mixed with the flow of underground and overground passengers. It plays host to over 30 million passengers a year. Holy crap! That's a lot of people. Players with previous route add-ons featuring London termini will be able to use Train Sim World 5's new route hopping feature to hop between them. The routes where this is possible include Southeastern High Speed for St. Pancras International, London Underground Bakerloo Line for Paddington, London Commuter for Victoria, and Great Western Express for Paddington. Bakerloo Line players will also be able to route hop between Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone, which are stations shared across both routes. We'll talk more extensively about route hopping, including all of the possible hopping locations across all routes in next week's USA focused article. So I'm excited for that one. So we have a lot of already existing screenshots that we've already seen that have been posted on various store pages or, on different articles, but also some new screenshots that at least I haven't seen here in this brand new article. So continuing beyond London, many stations within the Greater London area exist to accommodate the local and regional services heading out of Euston before heading further north to towns that were massively impacted by the arrival of the railways. On the horizon, landmarks like the BT Tower and Alexandra Road Estate will be seen. The Wembley area sees many of the different types of railway lines meet, all overlooked by the iconic Wembley Stadium to the north. Nearby Wembley Central and the Stonebridge Park play host to underground and overground services, the latter playable for owners of the Suffragette Line route add-on, and Wembley Yard stables rolling stock ranging from long freight trains to Class 390 Pendolinos. Between Cheddington and Leighton Buzzard is the inconspicuous Bridgado Bridge, sometimes referred to as Mentmore Bridge, which infamously became the location of the Great Train Robbery in 1963. At the northern end of the in-game route is Milton Keynes Central, where passengers are introduced to one of the Britain's post-war new towns that in real life features a rare American grid system of roads and a fresh contemporary take on the British suburban lifestyle. So much history incorporated with this route. I've mentioned that before, but I just find it really fascinating. I have a feeling that this is gonna end up being one of my favorites. I know it's gonna end up being between the German route and this route, and for TSW4, my favorite ended up being East Coast Mainline, so I'm gonna go ahead and say predictions. I think that West Coast Mainline is probably gonna end up being my favorite and one that I go back to the most, especially if the layers are as crazy as they're making it sound, where we're gonna be seeing lots and lots of AI traffic around. So moving on to the trains, putting the spotlight on them specifically. A fleet of trains both new to TSW5 and those seen in previous TSW routes are included in the West Coast Mainline route, with Deluxe Edition players also being able to operate the sleek and modern Avanti West Coast Pendolino. So for the Class 350 EMU, new to Train Sim World is the Class 350 EMU, adding yet another member of the larger DeZero family of trains to the game. First introduced in 2005, these trains operate various services from Euston, either beyond the map to locations such as Northampton and Birmingham, or to stations within the confines of the route such as Tring or Milton Keynes Central. Though not enabled for third rail use, these units can be adapted to work via this method. On all West Coast Mainline services, they are operated with overhead AC electrical power. Guard controls are available through the train, enabling easy access for players utilizing TSW5's conductor mode and service mode. We'll explain more about this feature further down. Oh, I am so excited for this part. Okay, it's what I'm looking forward to the most. The Class 350 will also make use of the digital display elements. Interactive screens have become increasingly common on newer trains, being introduced into Train Sim World, making their ease of use vital to the gameplay experience. Players will be able to zoom into the display by clicking on it, located awkwardly in the top right of the cab, and interact with the options such as lighting and view important information like braking and driving force. Both speed and brake pressure are measured using traditional manual gauges. So up next, on to the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino EMU, again for deluxe and special edition only. It comes in 9 and 11 car variants included to represent the whole fleet. Primary traction on the West Coast Mainline for 20 plus years, collectively traveled over 300 million miles. That's insane. So I guess that does answer my question that it is still in service today. Running regional high-speed services throughout the West Coast Main Line is the much requested sleek tilting marvel that is the Class 390 Pendolino. Born from the innovative tilting technology of groundbreaking test trains, these modern units have long been seen powering their way out of London and down to Britain's key towns and cities in the Midlands, North, and all the way to Scotland. Avanti West Coast, a new operator in Train Sim World, are the current custodians of these iconic trains, which are available for players of deluxe and special editions of TSW5. Additional services will bulk out the platforms of London Euston amongst the Class 350s and give players a totally different experience passing through many of the intermediate stations at high speed. So there's gonna be a lot of stopping passengers that you're seeing with these Class 350s, and you're just going to flash right by them. Personally, some of my favorite gameplay, especially on the Northeast Corridor when I'm in the Acellas or the ACS 64s and just flying past some of these New Jersey Transit trains that are either stopped at the stations or are moving between stations. I love driving express trains past non-express traffic. As we talked about earlier, they also write the trains will come in both 9 and 11 car formations and will also make use of the digital display enhancements to better view the screen located bottom left of the driver's desk. Like the Class 350, both speed and brake pressure are measured using manual gauges. The Class 390 also comes equipped with Tilt Authorization and Speed Supervision, or TASS, which is a system unique to the West Coast Main Line. This system monitors the speed of tilting trains and allows them to travel slightly faster than non-tilting trains on certain sections of track. Accompanying this are the EPS boards mentioned in the August roadmap. They show speeds that apply only to trains with tilting enabled. So if you're driving the Pendolino, the rules are going to be just slightly different for you. So on to the Southern Class 377/2 EMU. Also included in the West Coast Main Line are Class 377/2 units operated by Southern. Unlike their contemporaries found on the previous London commuter route add-on, these utilize overhead AC electric for power and can be switched to third rail for use on other areas of the national network. The Class 377/2 is included in Train Sim World 5's West Coast Main Line route. Players do not need to own previously released content to access this train. It is an entirely new loco. So on to the DB Cargo Class 66 diesel locomotive, additional freight services for PC and 9th gen console players. Okay, so I'm guessing right here we have our confirmation that if you're on 8th gen console, you're not going to be getting the DB Cargo Class 66 freight services. And honestly, I think this is a good move. I am still, like I mentioned in my last video, kind of surprised they have not dropped 8th gen support as of now. The consoles are just dated, and in order for them to continue to advance, make bigger timetables, make longer routes, we gotta stick with the times. But you know, they have included Gen 8, but they're giving them a reduced timetable, which makes sense. And I understand that those playing on 8th gen might be disappointed, but in order to get the full BV timetable, you are just gonna need modern hardware at this point. It's just not going to be possible with older consoles. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, and I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's just the truth. For a change of traction to something bigger and noisier, the ubiquitous Class 66 is included. Though this locomotive has not changed much beyond improvements made from previous TSW add-ons, it does come in a new variation of livery, DB Cargo, adding a red flavor to the train's palette on what is otherwise dominated by green shades of EMU. No, I agree, we definitely need a change of a color on the route. There's a lot of green, so this breaks it up nicely. And also, I just want to say, like, how many versions of the Class 66 are we gonna freaking get? How many are there at this point? I'm trying to think, like, are there at least 4 or 5 now, or are there 5 or 6? Would this be the 6th? Would this be the 7th? Is this the 5th? I just know there's a lot of them in this game at this point, especially if you own a lot of DLC for the UK. The DB Cargo Class 66 is included with TSW5's West Coast Main Line route for players on all platforms. Players do not need to own previously released content to access this train. For more information on timetable services, see further down in the article. So London Underground 1972 Mark II stock. An important aspect of the West Coast Main Line is its parallel running with a 7-mile stretch of the above ground London Underground bigger Bakerloo line, including stations at Queen's Park and Harrow and Wealdstone. The London Underground 1972 Mark II stock is included in the route, allowing players to play along a short stretch of the Bakerloo line even if they don't own any previous content. No, that's freaking cool. That's awesome. And I don't think I own any. Maybe I do own the Bakerloo line, but that is really cool that you will still have the ability to play that stretch. And even if you don't want to play that stretch, you're still gonna at least see those AI trains moving by for that 7-mile stretch. That's awesome. That's just gonna add so much more to the route. I'm very, very, very excited for this one. They continue, this provides a unique opportunity to drive trains with very different styles along the same route and adds more in-game traffic to what is one of the busiest stretches of line in the country. These trains will have updated lighting and rain effects for their use on this route. This now has me thinking if we're gonna see upgrades to the original add-on at some point. I guess we'll have to wait and see. The London Underground 1972 Mark II stock is included with TSW5's West Coast Main Line route. Players do not need to own previously released content to access this train. So on to the next section, which is the part that I am most excited about. We're on to the timetable, the layers, the scenarios and gameplay, and of course we will get to the conductor mode as well. With so many trains operating many different styles of services and stopping patterns, a robust timetable has been created reflecting the amount of traffic that this busy stretch of the West Coast Main Line receives. As we mentioned in our roadmap article, this has been one of the more complex areas of development, with so many trains interacting with one another from a signaling and pathing point of view. The types of services available to operate in service mode include, okay, so here we go, limited stop class 350 services to the likes of Crewe, Rugby, Birmingham, New Street, and Northampton, all ending in-game at Milton Keynes. All stop Class 350 services to Bletchley, Tring, and Milton Keynes Central. Class 350 ECS movements between Bletchley sidings and either Tring, Bletchley, or London Euston, as well as between Camden sidings. And London Euston, we have Class 377/2 services playable between Watford Junction and Wembley Central. London Underground Bakerloo line services between Harrow and Wealdstone and Queen's Park, as well as some ECS moves at Stonebridge Park. And of course we have our Class 66 freight. These arrive from off the map using the Willesden relief lines and are then playable until they reach Milton Keynes. These are all formed of intermodal trains. There's a lot of different variety for this route. I think that's what I'm really liking about this route so far, and the more that we learn about it, there's so much variety. Stopping passenger, express passenger, freight, London Underground. So many different kinds of trains, different variety and stopping patterns, service patterns, so there's a little bit for everyone on this route. I do think this will probably end up being one of the best reviewed ones, and I already know that when I play it, I'm going to love it. Of course, that does still take into account bugs, glitches. I'm nervous about that, and that will be a major part of my official review, but it's looking like this one's gonna end up being a really positive one for me. They do right here in note, freight services will not be available for players of 8th generation consoles, that's PlayStation 4, Xbox One. The Class 66 will still be available to spawn and operate using free mode in timetable mode, which makes sense. If you're on a Gen 8 console, you just aren't up to the standards of having these big, beefier timetables. It's just not gonna happen again. Yes, I understand it can be disappointing, but it's just the way that it is at this point, and I do not blame Dovetail for this. If anything, I commend them for doing this, because allowing all of these layers on 8th gen would just cause so many issues, and then players would be blaming them when it's really the fact that they're running on an outdated console. So additional service layers include the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino for deluxe and special editions, of course, to Glasgow Central, Manchester, Piccadilly, Liverpool Lime Street, Wolverhampton, and Birmingham New Street, all ending in-game at Milton Keynes. Class 390 ECS movements between Wembley sidings and London Euston, Class 710 London Overground services for players that own the Suffragette line Line add-on along the entire length of the Lioness Line from London Euston to Watford Junction, Class 710 ECS movements between Willesden Yard and London Euston / Watford Junction. Pendolino services that do not stop in Milton Keynes will be included in the timetable as AI services, which absolutely makes sense. And we saw that with the East Coast Main Line. There were several Azuma services that didn't stop at one or either of the terminus stations, and they're just not playable, but you still do see them on the route, and I'm happy that they are at least included for you to see. So all layers for Cathcart Circle Line route add-on. Train Sim World 5 players that own the recently remastered Cathcart Circle Line and the Class 380 EMU add-ons, which contains its new timetable, will see layered in Class 350 EMUs at Glasgow Central to represent a time that these trains were leased for use there. I really like that addition. The Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino will also appear for players that own the Deluxe and Special Edition or the local add-on that will release on launch day. These Cathcart Circle Line layers for the Class 380 timetable are all AI services, so you won't be able to actually play in the Class 390 or the Class 350s on this route. They are strictly AI, but it's nice they're there and you can see them, thus improving immersion in my opinion. Alright, so we're moving on to the conductor or guard mode features. New to TSW5 is the full conductor mode feature, which for the benefit of British players of British routes, we may occasionally refer to as guard mode. This brand new way to play in timetable service mode has stemmed from feedback on our guard conductor scenarios introduced into the previous Glossop Line and Long Island Railroad commuter route add-ons, which became some of the most played scenarios ever in TSW. From the main menu, players will be allowed to select guard as a playable mode, whereby the train is driven by the AI and the tasks required relate to those representative of a member of train crew across selected trains on the route. You're going to see today's journey with the next stops, an actual representation of the ticket with the to and from, its valid dates, and of course your response on if the ticket is or isn't valid for that passenger. Players will be able to stand in the conductor / guard position by any of the doors with a guard's panel and operate the controls to open and close doors, notify the driver / engineer that all is clear, as well as check passengers' tickets and clear the aisles of intrusive baggage. On West Coast Main Line, this includes using the guard's buzzer on the Class 350 to notify the driver when ready to depart. Similar tasks are in place for conductor mode on both San Bernardino Line and Frankfurt Fulda. On San Bernardino Line, notifying the engineer comes in the form of blowing a whistle, which is done by pressing the horn key / button. That's gonna be so fun. And West Coast Main Line guard mode is available on the Class 350. So to confirm, it is not on the Class 390 Pendolino. Coaches on San Bernardino Line will have conductor mode available, as will the BR114 plus Dosto set in Frankfurt Fulda. We're also exploring opportunities for implementation on other routes, including those announced for future release, and will provide further information in a future update. Wait a minute, hold on a second here. You know, this is a TSW5 feature, so exploring opportunities for future releases, I would just hope it would be on all future releases if they're TSW5 routes, correct? So, you know, I don't remember if this was already confirmed, maybe it has been, maybe it hasn't, but I'm just gonna say for MBTA commuter, we better have conductor mode. I don't really specifically remember if it was or not, but we better see that, at least for that route. I'm really looking forward to that. So for scenarios and gameplay, there will be a total of 8 scenarios available to play on West Coast Main Line. 5 of these involve the Class 350, with 3 available for players with the Avanti West Coast Class 390 Pendolino add-on included in both Deluxe and Special Editions of Train Sim World 5. I think it's a pretty good number of scenarios. Honestly, I really don't have anything to bitch about on that one. I think 8 needs to be the standard that we get with every single route. And now that we have official conductor / guard mode, we don't have to worry about one of those scenarios being playing for guard, you know? So just 8 regular scenarios. The Class 350 scenarios are Service Savior, where you're required to step in to drive the 350 in the absence of a driver. Football Frenzy, involving the movement of passengers from the Wembley area. Back in Service, requiring a coupling procedure to another Class 350 unit. Heavy Traffic, an ECS service. And Carriage Collector, a service involving movement in a depot. So for the Class 390, for the 3, we have Refreshing Refurb and ECS service. Watford Bypass, which required your service to be diverted along slow lines. And Pennolino, which involves a service with the TASS disabled. So lots of variety here. I am just by these descriptions, I'm really happy with what we're going to get, but of course I want to see it in action before I can give my final review. There will be a series of collectibles to go and hunt down across the route, including defibrillators and posters. On top of that, there are some little delivery bots that seem to have lost their way. These can sometimes be seen roaming the streets of Milton Keynes in real life, but may have snuck onto station platforms and Train Sim World for players to find. Players might also find some Dovetail FC football scarves to pick up that have been discarded by Wembley goers. Mastery challenges require you to perform certain tasks on a route, like completing certain scenarios or traveling a certain number of miles on a specific locomotive. Tier 1 challenges unlock decals for use in Livery Designer. Tier 2 challenges unlock toggleable scenery tiles. The key art for West Coast Mainline is shown early in this article, featuring the Class 377 and Class 350 EMUs, has some bovine rail fans observing the trains as they move along the tracks. The unlockable Tier 2 mastery tile for this route also features these friendly field dwellers in Milton Keynes, but not in the form you might expect. So the live stream for West Coast Mainline, the preview is actually going to be tomorrow, guys, in less than 24 hours now by the time this video goes up. So they're going to be exploring the full 50 miles from London Euston to Milton Keynes, showing off the Class 350, 377-2, and of course the 390 Pendolino. I hope it's a really long live stream. I'm sorry, I don't want to see less than 2 hours on this thing. Hopefully 2.5 hours. I know that's asking for a lot, but this is a long route with a lot that's coming with it. And I mean, their main player base is UK, so I really hope they give this one a lot of love. And I personally am very excited for it. And I want you guys to let me know down below what you guys think of everything in this article, what you've learned, what you've discovered. Are you excited for this route? Of course, thank you guys so much for clicking and watching. Take care and happy rail simming. Bye everyone.